The downfall of the Boer republics and the British consolidation of power in South Africa represents a pivotal moment in the history of Southern Africa, rooted in the complex interplay of colonial expansion, indigenous resistance, and economic interests. This transformation, primarily occurring during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, set the stage for the Union of South Africa and laid the foundation for apartheid policies that would dominate the region in the 20th century. Background of the Boer republics. The Boer republics, primarily the South African republics ZAR, also known as the Transvaal and the Orange Free State, were established in the mid-19th century by Afrikaner settlers, descendants of Dutch colonists. These republics arose as a result of the Great Trek, during which Boers moved inland to escape British control in the Cape Colony. The Boers sought independence, self-governance, and the preservation of their way of life, which included farming and a reliance on enslaved or semi-enslaved labor. The Boer republics were characterized by their agrarian economy, Calvinist religious beliefs, and a commitment to racial hierarchy. Despite their desire for autonomy, the republics faced numerous challenges, including limited resources, indigenous resistance, and constant threats from the British Empire, which sought to extend its influence across southern Africa. British interests in southern Africa. The British Empire's interests in southern Africa was initially tied to its strategic location along the trade route to India. However, the discovery of diamonds in 1867 near Kimberley and gold in the Witwatersrand region of the Transvaal in 1886 dramatically increased the region's economic importance. These discoveries transformed South Africa into a focal point of imperial competition and exploitation. The British sought to control the lucrative diamond and gold industries, which were essential for funding their global empire. They also aimed to establish a unified South Africa under British rule, aligning with the broader imperial goal of consolidating territories in Africa. Tensions between the British and the Boers. The discovery of gold in the Transvaal intensified tensions between the British and the Boer republics. The Transvaal's newfound wealth posed a challenge to British dominance, while the influx of foreign prospectors, referred to as Uitlanders, created political and social friction. The Uitlanders were largely excluded from political participation by the Boer governments, particularly in the Transvaal under President Paul Kruger. British capitalists, led by figures like Cecil Rhodes, sought to undermine Boer control of the goldfields. The failed Jameson Raid of 1895-1896, orchestrated by Rhodes and supported by British officials, was a direct attempt to incite an uprising against the Transvaal government. While the raid failed, it highlighted British ambitions and deepened Boer mistrust of British intentions. The Second Anglo-Boer War, 1899-1909. The tensions culminated in the Second Anglo-Boer War, also known as the South African War. The conflict began in 1899, driven by disputes over Uitlander rights, British imperial ambitions, and Boer resistance to external control. Phase 1. Conventional warfare. Initially, the Boers achieved notable successes through their knowledge of the terrain and reliance on mobile, guerrilla-style tactics. However, the British, with their superior resources and manpower, gradually gained the upper hand. By 1900, major Boer cities, including Pretoria and Bloemfontein, had fallen to British forces. Phase 2. Guerrilla warfare and British countermeasures. After the fall of their capitals, the Boers shifted to guerrilla warfare, targeting British supply lines and infrastructure. The British responded with a scorched earth policy, destroying farms, confiscating livestock, and implementing a network of concentration camps to house Boer civilians. These camps, notorious for their high mortality rates due to disease and malnutrition, became a symbol of British brutality and elicited international condemnation. The Treaty of Vereeniging. By 1902, the Boers, exhausted and outnumbered, agreed to negotiate peace. The Treaty of Vereeniging ended the war, with the Boer republics accepting British sovereignty. In return, the British promised to provide financial assistance for reconstruction and to address issues related to Afrikaner language and culture. British consolidation of South Africa. Following the war, the British focused on unifying South Africa under their control. In 1910, the Union of South Africa was established, combining the Cape Colony, Natal, the Transvaal, and the Orange Free State into a single dominion within the British Empire. Key features of the Union: 1. Political structure. The Union was governed by a white-dominated parliament with voting rights largely restricted to white citizens. 2. Economic integration. The British invested in infrastructure to connect the territories, facilitating economic integration and the exploitation of South Africa's mineral wealth. 3. Racial policies. The Union's government institutionalized racial segregation, setting the stage for apartheid. African populations were disenfranchised and subjected to discriminatory laws, such as the 1913 Natives Land Act, which restricted land ownership for black South Africans. Legacy and impact. The downfall of the Boer republics and the British consolidation of power had far-reaching consequences. 1. Economic transformation. South Africa became one of the world's leading producers of gold and diamonds, driving economic growth but entrenching inequality. 2. Afrikaner nationalism. The war and its aftermath fostered a sense of Afrikaner identity and resistance, eventually leading to the rise of the National Party and the implementation of apartheid in 1948. 3. Colonial legacy. Indigenous populations faced systemic oppression, land dispossession, and economic marginalization, effects that persist to this day. Conclusion. The downfall of the Boer republics marked the end of Afrikaner independence and the triumph of British imperialism in southern Africa. While the British achieved their goal of unifying the region, the process came at a significant human and social cost. The scars of this era, including the legacy of racial inequality and colonial exploitation, continue to shape South Africa's socio-political landscape. If you liked our informative videos, then please subscribe my channel Era link.